I never thought I'd be the guy writing this kind of story, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I'm 35. I've been married to Lisa for about 6 years now. We met in college, had our ups, had our downs, but overall I thought we had a pretty solid life. She's smart, beautiful, a little bitchy sometimes, but in that charming way. She's also fiercely independent, knows what she wants, and she's not afraid to lie if she thinks it'll save her ass. That's what's been bothering me lately, though. Something just felt off. Little things, you know. She'd get weird about her phone, start hiding it more, deleting texts. Not huge stuff at first, just little nudges that made me suspicious. But I brushed it aside, told myself I was overthinking. Then, about a month ago, she started taking these sudden business trips. I work in marketing, so I get that she has to travel sometimes. But she'd leave late at night, come back exhausted, and I'd find her acting secretive. She'd brush off my questions, say I'm being paranoid, that I'm imagining things. I wanted to believe her, the good old "she's just busy, she's stressed" story. But deep down, I knew something was up. I even caught her once sneaking her phone into her purse when I walked into the bedroom unexpectedly. She acted like I was nuts when I asked what she was hiding. She smirked, said I was paranoid, but I could see the guilty look in her eyes. That night I couldn't sleep, replaying that moment over and over. It was around this time that I also started noticing odd things. She was more distant, more defensive. She'd lie about where she was going, saying she was at a conference, at a client meeting, or visiting her sister. But her stories didn't add up. I'd ask her about her trips and she'd get defensive, call me insecure or jealous. Honestly, I just wanted to trust her, but every little thing pointed to her hiding something. I didn't want to be that guy, the guy who's paranoid about his wife, but my gut said something was wrong. And then just last week I was cleaning out my closet trying to find some old papers and I saw her purse sitting on the bed. I wasn't snooping, I swear, I was just curious. I reached in to grab my wallet and noticed a hotel room key tucked inside, just sitting there in her purse. My stomach dropped. I looked at it more closely. Was it a mistake? Did she forget she left it there? Or was she sneaking around? I couldn't believe it. My first instinct was to confront her right then and there, but I held back. I needed to think. That night I stayed up watching her, waiting for her to go to sleep, but she was glued to her phone, acting normal. When she finally dozed off, I quietly took her purse and looked at the key again. It was for a hotel downtown, one I knew she'd never mention. I had no proof of anything else, just that strange little object in her purse. And yet I just knew she had been sneaking around with someone. I didn't want to face it, but I had to. I needed to find out the truth, so I decided I'd check out that hotel the next day just to see. I wasn't actually planning to go inside, just to see if she was actually there. But of course, I didn't need to, because the next morning I saw her car parked outside the hotel. She wasn't supposed to be back from her trip yet, and I was frozen. My heart was pounding, and I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I knew for sure, she was cheating on me. Not just with anyone, but with her best friend Lisa's boyfriend, Mark, or at least that's what I had heard from a friend of a friend. But what hurt more was that it was Lisa's best friend, someone I used to trust, the person Lisa always said she'd confide in. I stood there watching her go inside. My mind was racing. How long had they been doing this? Was it just a one-time thing, or had it been going on for months? I started feeling the anger build up, but also this sinking feeling in my chest that my entire life, my marriage, my trust was a lie. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly completely broken. The worst part, I had no idea how to confront her or if I even should. My brain was scrambling, trying to think of what I'd say, what I'd do. I just knew I couldn't keep pretending anymore. This wasn't just some minor slip-up. This was a full-blown affair, and I had to face it. The shock hit me like a freight train, but I knew I couldn't just stand there forever. I had to do something, but I didn't want to act rashly. I needed a plan. First, I went back home, trying to keep a calm face, but inside I was a mess. I kept replaying everything, the late nights, the strange behavior, the little lies. I felt like a fool. How could I have missed all the signs? I trusted her. I really did. And now, sitting here, I was starting to realize how much I'd been blind. When Lisa finally came home that evening, she was acting like everything was normal. Maybe a little tired, maybe a little stressed, but basically the same Lisa I'd known. I watched her from a distance, trying to maintain my composure. She greeted me with her usual snarky attitude. "What's with that look? Are you finally jealous or just losing it?" I didn't say a word at first. I just looked at her and decided I'd confront her in a way that would give me the answers I needed. Later that night, I sat her down in the living room. I told her I knew about the hotel key. Her face flickered, initially shock, then annoyance, then that bitchy smirk she always put on when she thought she was winning an argument. She started spinning her usual bullshit. "You're overreacting, Mike. You don't have proof. You're just paranoid because I've been busy with work." "Yeah, right." I cut her off before she could finish. I told her I saw her going into that hotel, that I had proof, that I knew she'd been lying to me from the start. Her reaction: she rolled her eyes, scoffed at me like I was a complete idiot. "So what if I went to a hotel? Maybe I was just tired or needed some space." "You don't own me, Mike. You're acting like a jealous fool." Her voice was sharp, her words dripping with contempt. She denied everything, spun some more lies about how she was just working late, how I was insecure and paranoid. She even had the audacity to say I was overreacting because she was bored and needed some excitement. I could feel my face getting red, my fists clenched. I wanted to scream at her, call her every name in the book, but I kept my composure. I knew I needed a better plan. I sat there listening to her bullshit, feeling the betrayal settle deep into my bones. I wanted to believe she was lying, that she was just trying to save her skin because she knew she'd been caught. But I knew better. I could see it in her eyes, the way she avoided my gaze, the slight tremor in her voice when she lied. It was all so transparent now. I felt like I'd been living in a fog, and suddenly it lifted, revealing a truth I'd refused to see before. That night I didn't sleep. Instead, I kept thinking about all the times she'd been gone, all the things she'd lied about. I couldn't believe how much I'd trusted her, how much I'd been blinded by the idea of a life I thought we shared. Now I was stuck with a gut-wrenching question. How long had she been doing this? Had she been cheating on me from the start? Or was it recent? The thought of her and Lisa's best friend, Mark, together, something I'd always kind of suspected but never wanted to admit, made me feel sick. The next morning I started digging for more evidence. I checked her phone, her emails, her social media. I wasn't trying to spy out of malicious intent. I needed to know the full story. I found a series of texts between Lisa and Mark, full of flirtatious bullshit, hints about meeting up. They'd been talking for months, planning secret rendezvous. It wasn't just a one-night stand. It was something deeper, something she had been hiding for a long time. When I confronted her again that day, her face was a mask of defiance. She yelled, called me insecure, accused me of spying on her because I didn't trust her. That trust was gone now, completely shattered. I told her I'd had enough, that I didn't want to be married to someone who lied and cheated on me. She laughed, told me I was making a big deal out of nothing, that I was just jealous because she was better than me. That was the moment I realized I was dealing with a narcissist, someone who would lie her way out of anything to keep her secrets. All the while, I felt this terrible mixture of heartbreak and rage. How could I have been so blind? I thought I knew her, but now I was questioning everything. My mind kept circling back to the fact that I might have been nothing more than a pawn in her game. I was furious, devastated, and feeling more lost than ever. But beneath all that, I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living in this mess, not knowing where I stood. I needed clarity, I needed a plan, and above all, I needed to figure out whether I was going to fight for this marriage or cut my losses and walk away. After days of sleepless nights and endless thinking, I finally decided I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. The truth was staring me right in the face, and I knew I had to confront her again. But this time, I was prepared. I wanted answers, and I wasn't going to let her spin her usual lies. I also knew I needed to be careful. This wasn't just about fighting. It was about controlling the situation and protecting myself emotionally. I waited until Lisa was out for one of her business trips, but instead of staying home, I drove straight to the hotel where I'd last seen her go in. I had no grand plan, just a gut feeling that I had to see for myself if she was still lying. I parked a block away, watching the lobby, waiting for her to come out. I felt like a damn detective in some bad movie. My heart was pounding, but I stayed still, keeping my eyes peeled. Minutes felt like hours. Then I saw her come out, not alone. She was with Mark. My stomach clenched. They looked comfortable, like they'd been doing this forever. She was smiling, laughing at something Mark said, and he was leaning in close. I watched as they got into her car, the way they touched, the way she looked at him. It hit me like a punch. This was real. This was more than just a fling. It was something serious, something she'd been hiding for months, maybe longer. I didn't want to confront her immediately. I wanted to think, to plan how I was going to handle this. But just seeing her like that, so carefree with him, made my blood boil. I'd trusted her. We had a good life, at least I thought we did. Now I felt like I'd been living a lie, and this moment confirmed everything I'd feared. She wasn't just a bit sneaky. She was a liar, a cheat, and she'd been doing it right under my nose. That night I came back home and sat in the dark, replaying everything I saw. I felt betrayed in a way I'd never felt before. I'd always known she had a bitchy streak, but I never thought she'd go this far. I asked myself, how long had this been going on? Why Lisa? She was supposed to be loyal, my rock. That's what I told myself. She always said she loved me, that I was her everything. How could she do this? How long had she been cheating, lying, sneaking around behind my back? And then out of nowhere, I remembered that I hadn't found her with Mark in the hotel lobby. I remembered a detail I'd almost forgotten: her purse. When I looked inside, I found something else. An empty condom wrapper. Not just that, I found a receipt from a local pharmacy. That sealed it for me. She wasn't just meeting Mark for coffee or some innocent business lunch. They were fucking. There's no other way to interpret that. I felt sick, angry, and completely shattered. Now I was faced with a terrible decision. Do I just pack up and leave? Do I yell at her? Or do I try to get some answers first? I knew I couldn't keep pretending I was okay. I also knew I didn't trust her anymore, not even a little. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about my dignity. I had to decide what came next, and honestly, I wasn't sure I could do it without losing my mind. That night, I sat in my living room, staring at the door, wondering if she'd come home early or if she was already on her way back. I felt numb. I was angry, but also deeply hurt. The woman I married, the woman I trusted with my whole life, she'd been lying to me for months, possibly years. All those nights I stayed awake worrying, all those little doubts I brushed aside. Turns out they were right. I just didn't want to see it. Now that I did, I didn't know how to go on. I felt like I'd been betrayed, not just by her, but by the entire idea of what I thought our marriage was. And yet I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't go back. Not anymore. The next morning I woke up with a pounding head and a mind racing 1,000 miles an hour. I couldn't believe I was actually standing here at this crossroads. Part of me wanted to call her, yell at her, demand answers. But another part, the cold, rational part, knew that whatever I said wouldn't change what she'd already done. It was done. The trust was shattered beyond repair. Still, I had to know exactly how deep this went, how long she'd been lying. I took a deep breath and decided I'd confront her face to face. I texted her to come home early from her next business trip. No last-minute excuses, no more hiding. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. When she arrived, she looked surprised, maybe even a little nervous. Not that I blame her. After everything I'd uncovered, I was a different man. I brought her into the living room, turned on the TV, and sat down across from her. Her eyes flicked nervously, but she tried to act like everything was normal. So, I started, voice steady but cold. I know about Mark. I saw you two yesterday. I saw you getting into his car, and I found that condom wrapper too. Care to explain? She scoffed, rolled her eyes. Mike, you're overreacting. It's just sex, okay? It doesn't mean anything. We're just what? I cut her off. Just fucking around behind my back. Do you even hear yourself? You've been lying to my face for months. You think I don't see the signs, the texts, the hotel key? How long have you been doing this? She crossed her arms and looked away. Look, I didn't mean for it to get this far. It just happened. I was stressed, and Mark, he's just a friend, okay? We're not in love or anything. It's just sex. I couldn't believe I was hearing this. Just sex. So all those late nights, all those secret trips, what were they? Just some meaningless shit to pass the time. And Lisa, don't insult my intelligence. I found the receipts, the condom wrapper, all of it. How long have you been cheating on me? Months? Years? Her face twisted into that bitchy smirk. "You're so dramatic, Mike. Honestly, I don't owe you an explanation. I'm tired of this whole damn circus. Maybe you should look in the mirror and think about why I had to cheat. You're not exactly perfect, you know." That cut deep. I felt the anger surge again, but I kept my voice steady. "You think I don't know what you're really doing. You're just trying to justify your actions. But here's the thing, cheating on me with your best friend's boyfriend, that's next level. Do you even realize what you've done to this marriage? Do you care?" She laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "Honestly, no, I don't care anymore, Mike. I'm done pretending. You want to play the victim, go ahead. But I'm tired of your accusations. If you want to throw this all away, fine. I've got nothing more to say." That's when I saw the real her, the angry, selfish, manipulative woman who'd been lying from the start. I felt a strange mixture of sadness and rage. I'd loved her once, believed in us. And now I just felt empty. I looked at her, saw her sneer at me, and knew I couldn't stay married to someone who could do this. Not anymore. I told her to pack her things, that I wanted her out of the house by tonight. She scoffed again, but I didn't care. I'd already made up my mind. I couldn't keep pretending this wasn't happening. My entire world was falling apart, and I had to face the brutal truth. The woman I loved had been betraying me for months, maybe longer. She didn't deserve my trust anymore. As she stormed out of the house, I sat down on the couch and looked around the place we'd built together. All the memories, all the plans, suddenly felt tainted. Every moment I thought was real fake. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so naive. But deep down, I knew that this was the beginning of something new. Something painful, yes, but maybe necessary. Because the truth had to come out. And now that I knew, I had to figure out how to pick up the pieces and move on, without her, without the lies. The days that followed were a blur of chaos and numbness. I still couldn't fully believe what had happened, but every time I looked at her empty side of the bed or saw her clothes gone, it hit me harder. I kept questioning everything. How long had she been lying? How much of my life was just a facade? I'd caught her red-handed, and yet part of me still felt like I was dreaming. But I knew better. The truth was ugly, and it was staring me right in the face. I spent the first couple of days just trying to breathe, trying to process everything. I avoided calling her or texting her. She'd already made her choice. I went into a kind of shock, bouncing back between anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief that I finally knew the truth. But that relief was short-lived. The betrayal cut so deep that I couldn't shake the feeling of being completely shattered. I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd thrown it all away for a quick fling with Mark. Then, one afternoon, I decided I couldn't stay passive anymore. I needed to take control of this mess. So I reached out to Lisa's best friend, Sarah. I've been holding my tongue, but I knew Sarah had to know what her best friend was really up to. When I called her, I didn't hold back. I told her everything about the hotel, the texts, the condom wrapper, the lies. I needed her to understand what kind of person Lisa really was. I told her I felt betrayed, humiliated, and that I didn't want her to keep her head in the sand. Sarah was stunned silent at first, then she started crying. She said she had no idea, that Lisa had been acting strange for months, but she never suspected it was this serious. She promised to confront Lisa, but I told her to be careful. I didn't want her getting caught in the crossfire or becoming part of Lisa's manipulation. I told her I wasn't trying to tear everything apart, but I couldn't keep quiet either. Honestly, I just needed someone on my side, someone who could see the truth. That conversation gave me some clarity. I realized I wasn't just angry at Lisa anymore. I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, for not trusting my instincts. But I also knew I couldn't stay stuck in that anger forever. I had to decide what I wanted from here. Was I going to fight to salvage what was left of my marriage? Or was I going to cut my losses and walk away? I spent my nights staring at my phone, thinking about her, wondering if she was already with Mark or if she was planning to come back and try to manipulate me again. I felt like a fool, but at the same time, I knew this was my chance to take control. I started preparing myself emotionally, knowing that whatever happened next, I had to be strong. I couldn't let her or Mark manipulate me anymore. I wasn't going to be the victim in this story. I was going to be the one who finally took charge. One thing I knew for sure, I had to rebuild my life from scratch. The trust was gone, probably forever, but I still had myself. I wasn't going to let this break me, even if it hurt like hell. I began planning my next move, whether it was filing for divorce, talking to a lawyer, or just giving myself space to breathe. I knew I needed clarity, but I also knew I couldn't keep living in this limbo. The sooner I cut the cord, the better. And so I promised myself that I wouldn't be the guy who gets cheated on and stays because he's scared or because he's comfortable. No, I deserved better than that. I deserved someone who loved me, who respected me. As much as it hurt, I realized this was the end of the road for us. But it was also the start of something new for me. I just had to survive the pain, face the truth, and move forward. No matter how much it stings, I know now that I can't trust her anymore, and I have to accept that. It's not easy, but it's the only way I'll find my peace. In the weeks that followed, I did what I knew I had to do. I filed for divorce. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the only way to start healing. The courtroom was a blur, and I remember feeling numb as the judge finalized everything. As I signed the papers, I realized I was finally free from the lies, the betrayal, and the false sense of security I'd built around our life together. It was like shedding a heavy weight I'd been carrying. For too long, living alone was a strange experience. At first I felt empty, like I'd lost part of myself along with her. But gradually I started rebuilding. I threw myself into work, spent more time with friends, and focused on rediscovering who I was outside of that toxic relationship. I learned to trust my instincts again, to listen to that little voice inside that had warned me all along. I also learned that sometimes the hardest lessons come with the clearest clarity. Trust is something you earn and protect, not something you give blindly. Looking back, I realize how much I grew from this ordeal. I learned that no matter how much you want to believe in someone, sometimes it's better to face the truth early than to live in denial. I also learned that revenge, in its purest form, isn't about hurting others. It's about reclaiming your power. I didn't need to destroy her or Mark. I just needed to take control of my life again. That was the real victory. Now I'm focusing on myself. I've started dating again, cautiously, but with a new sense of self-respect. I don't trust easily anymore, but I do believe in honesty and loyalty. I've also cut out all the toxic people from my life, those who didn't support me or who enabled the lies. I've realized that happiness isn't about someone else's validation. It's about knowing your worth and standing up for yourself, even when it's painful. This story taught me that betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to define you. I'm stronger now because I went through hell and came out the other side. I see life differently, with sharper eyes and a more cautious heart. And I know that whatever comes next, I'll be ready for it. Because I've learned that the only person responsible for your happiness is yourself. And sometimes, the hardest thing to do is let go of the lies, of the betrayal of the past. But it's the only way to truly move forward.